Ethan Miller stepped off the shuttle onto the alien planet, his boots sinking slightly into the strange red soil. The air was thick and smelled faintly of minerals, and the sky was streaked with colors he had never seen before. Distant mountains twisted into jagged shapes and storms rumbled far off in the horizon, making the ground beneath him tremble. He looked around, taking in the alien landscape, feeling a mixture of awe and unease. This was a planet no human had ever set foot on before, a world rumored to be dangerous and nearly uninhabitable, yet it called to him in a way he could not explain. Ethan adjusted his backpack and checked the scanner on his wrist. Nothing unusual, he thought, but something deep inside told him that danger was near. He moved cautiously, keeping his eyes on the jagged mountains while scanning the area for movement. Then he heard it, a low rumbling growl that shook his chest. He froze, his heart pounding, and listened. The sound came again, louder, and he realized it was not from a normal animal. It was something enormous. Ethan ducked behind a large rock, peering out through a small gap. Across the valley he saw it. A creature unlike anything he had ever imagined. A giant alien warrior stood nearly 3 times the height of a human, its body covered in thick armor-like scales, muscles rippling beneath. Its head was elongated with glowing eyes that scanned the surroundings, and in its massive hands it held a weapon that pulsed with energy. Surrounding it were massive predator creatures bigger than trucks, snarling and snapping their jaws, circling the warrior. Ethan's pulse raced. Most humans would have turned and fled, called for reinforcements, or stayed hidden, but he could not look away. He felt something in the warrior's stance, something intelligent, something alive and aware. The alien was not just fighting. It was calculating, moving with precision, anticipating the attacks, protecting something or someone. Ethan's curiosity overpowered his fear. Slowly he crept closer, careful to remain hidden behind rocks and debris. Every step made his heart beat faster, but he could not stop. He wanted to see it up close, wanted to understand it. Suddenly, one of the predators lunged at him, and he barely ducked in time. Rocks scattered as the creature missed him by inches. He swallowed hard and kept moving, ignoring the danger. He had to know more about this giant warrior. The battle in the valley continued, with the giant alien warrior striking down the predators one by one. Its movements were precise and terrifying, yet Ethan noticed something else. A hesitation, a pause before each strike, as if it considered mercy. Ethan's mind raced. Could this creature think and feel? Could it understand? He whispered to himself, I have to try to communicate. I have to reach it. He stepped carefully out from behind the rocks, making his presence known, but keeping his hands visible. The alien's eyes snapped to him. Ethan froze, every instinct screaming at him to run, but he did not. He held still, meeting the creature's gaze. For a long moment the world seemed to stop. The alien studied him, tilting its massive head, and then slowly, almost deliberately, it stepped back. Ethan's heart jumped. This was the first sign of understanding. He exhaled quietly, lowering himself to sit on the ground, keeping his hands open and still. The alien did not approach immediately, but it did not attack. It stayed at a cautious distance, observing. Ethan slowly pulled out a small water container and placed it near a rock, then retreated slightly. The alien's glowing eyes flicked to it, then back to Ethan. It sniffed the air, its massive chest heaving, and took a careful step toward the water. Ethan held his breath. The creature bent its head, touched the water lightly with a claw, and drank. Ethan's eyes widened. This simple gesture, so small, felt like the beginning of a connection. He smiled faintly and whispered, I won't hurt you. I just want to understand. Days passed, and Ethan stayed near the valley, always careful, always observant. He began leaving small gifts. Water, food, even small tools he thought the alien might find interesting. Each day he watched as the warrior, whom he named Goran in his own mind, grew more curious. The alien would watch him from a distance, sometimes mimicking his movements, tilting its head, or letting out low sounds that almost seemed like words. Ethan tried to respond using simple gestures and pointing to objects, drawing symbols in the soil. Slowly, a rhythm formed between them, a silent conversation built on trust and patience. Ethan's colleagues back at the human base were worried. They sent messages urging him to retreat, warning him that this could end in death. But Ethan could not leave. Something about Goran was different. Something about the way it thought, moved, and responded told him that this giant warrior was not just a mindless beast. It was capable of understanding. One night, under a sky painted with red storms and streaks of lightning, Ethan sat quietly, watching Goran patrol the valley. He whispered softly, testing the alien's reactions, and to his surprise, Goran approached slowly, each step deliberate, until it stood just a few meters away. Its glowing eyes locked onto his, and Ethan extended his hand, palm open. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Goran reached out a massive claw and touched his hand lightly. Ethan froze, his mind reeling with excitement and fear. This was more than trust. It was recognition. It was the beginning of a bond that neither of them could have imagined. From that night onward, their days were filled with cautious exploration, silent communication, and small victories that strengthened their connection. Ethan began to study Goran. Noting every movement, every sound, every reaction, he realized that the alien warrior had patterns, habits, and even signs of emotion. When a storm rolled across the mountains, Goran would pause and shield itself, then glance toward Ethan as if ensuring he was safe. When predators appeared on the horizon, it would growl softly, not just in anger, but as if warning him to stay back. Ethan learned to read these cues, understanding that Goran's behavior was logical, intelligent, and at times almost human in its reasoning. Their trust grew with each passing day, and with trust came courage. Ethan discovered that he could move closer to the alien than he had ever imagined, and Goran allowed it, showing patience and tolerance that amazed him. However, peace was fragile. On the 5th day, Ethan noticed unusual signs: distant shadows moving swiftly, strange mechanical noises in the hills, and footprints that did not belong to the native wildlife. He realized they were not alone. Alien mercenaries drawn by rumors of a giant warrior might be approaching. Fear gripped him, but he could not run. He had grown attached to Goran, and the thought of harm coming to the alien he had come to trust was unbearable. He whispered urgently, pointing to the approaching signs, and Goran's eyes narrowed, understanding that danger was near. The massive warrior growled low, a sound that vibrated through the valley, warning whatever was coming to stay back. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. Together, they prepared for the unknown, a human and a giant alien warrior standing side by side against whatever threat was approaching. He could not know if they would survive, but he knew one thing. He had found a friend in the most unlikely being in the galaxy. The first night of tension passed with shadows flitting across the valley, distant roars echoing like drums. Ethan kept a fire low, careful not to draw attention, while Goran remained vigilant, his massive frame a constant comforting presence. Ethan realized that his fear had transformed into respect and admiration. He had seen courage in the alien that dwarfed his own, yet he also understood that true bravery was not about strength alone, but about protecting those who mattered. That night he made a silent promise. He would protect Goran as fiercely as the warrior would protect him, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Somewhere in the darkness, the galaxy began to stir, and the first hints of a story that would shake the stars had already begun. Over the following days, Ethan experimented with communication more actively, using gestures, sounds, and drawings in the soil. Goran began to respond with subtle movements, pointing with claws, tilting his head, or growling softly in acknowledgement. Ethan felt a thrill each time the alien seemed to understand a concept he had tried to convey. Their bond grew stronger, and he realized that what he had witnessed on the first day, intelligence, patience, curiosity, was just the beginning. There was something extraordinary about Goran, something that no human or alien had truly comprehended. The warrior's strength, cunning, and empathy combined to create a being unlike any other in the galaxy. Ethan felt lucky, privileged, and terrified all at once. One morning, a loud crash echoed from the distant cliffs, followed by an ominous hum. Ethan's heart raced. The mercenaries must be close. He glanced at Goran, who was already moving, muscles tensing, eyes scanning the terrain. Ethan understood without words. They would face whatever came together as a team. He grabbed his gear, adjusted his scanner, and followed the alien as it led the way to a vantage point overlooking the valley. From there, they could see movement, ships descending from the sky, mechanical limbs clanging against rocks, a sound that made Ethan shiver. Yet he did not falter. Goran stood firm, and Ethan knew that with the warrior by his side, he could face anything. The adventure had only just begun, but already their story was one that would echo through the stars. The morning sun barely pierced the thick clouds of the alien planet as Ethan and Goran moved through the rocky terrain. The air was tense with the quiet of an uneasy world, a stillness that made every sound sharper, every movement more noticeable. Ethan adjusted his pack, feeling the weight of the supplies and tools he carried, but more importantly, he felt the responsibility he had taken upon himself. Goran walked a few steps ahead, his massive form moving with a grace that belied his size. Every muscle seemed ready, every sense alert. And Ethan marveled at how such a creature could balance such immense power with careful caution. For hours, they traveled climbing cliffs, avoiding loose rocks, and carefully navigating the strange plant life that seemed to grow in twisted, sharp forms. Ethan kept glancing at Goran, studying his behavior, learning to anticipate his movements. Every so often, Goran would stop, lower his head, and emit a low, vibrating sound. Ethan had learned by now that this was not aggression but a signal, a way of saying, "Pay attention, danger might be near." He nodded quietly and moved accordingly. The partnership was unspoken but effective, and Ethan felt a thrill every time they managed to navigate the tricky terrain safely together. By midday, they reached a small plateau overlooking a deep valley. Ethan set down his pack and took out his scanner. He waved it slowly over the valley, noting the patterns of movement below. Goran crouched beside him, watching intently, and Ethan realized that the alien warrior was studying the same terrain, analyzing potential threats and advantages just as he was. It was an amazing sight. Here was a being from a species that humans feared, capable of destruction. Yet it worked seamlessly with a human, trusting him enough to share the responsibility of survival. Ethan could not help but feel proud and cautious at the same time. The galaxy might not understand, but he knew the importance of what they were building together. Suddenly, a shadow passed over them, and Ethan froze. He glanced up to see sleek shapes descending rapidly from the sky. "Alien scouts!" His heart jumped into his throat. He whispered urgently, pointing, and Goran's head snapped in the direction of the approaching ships. They moved quickly, slipping into a small crevice near the cliff. Ethan crouched low, holding his breath while Goran's massive body pressed against the rocks as if to shield him. The scouts passed over, their sensors scanning, but they did not notice the duo hidden in shadow. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling a surge of relief. He realized that the danger was closer than ever, and yet with Goran by his side he did not feel helpless. After the scouts moved on, Ethan examined his surroundings more carefully. He realized that the planet held countless hidden threats. Rocks that seemed stable were anything but, and predators he could not see might be lurking nearby. He glanced at Goran, who had already resumed walking, each step deliberate, every movement calculated. Ethan followed, keeping pace, and marveled at the alien's instincts. He had never felt more alive, more aware of every sound, smell, and movement around him. For the first time, he understood the meaning of survival not as fear, but as focus, partnership, and understanding. By late afternoon, they found a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. Ethan quickly checked the entrance for predators and found none. Goran had already stepped inside, his massive form fitting into the cave better than Ethan had imagined. The cave smelled damp but safe, and the sound of falling water masked any approach from outside. Ethan set down his pack, took out some dried rations, and offered them to Goran. The alien sniffed cautiously before picking up a piece and eating it, glancing back at Ethan as if testing him. Ethan smiled faintly, understanding that this simple act of sharing food was another layer of trust. They had survived the first encounter with outside threats together, and now they would begin to learn more about each other in quiet moments. Night fell quickly, the sky dark and full of strange glowing clouds. Ethan lay on a makeshift bed of leaves and blankets he had fashioned, while Goran curled his massive body near the entrance of the cave, vigilant. Ethan listened to the rhythmic breathing of the alien, noticing small movements as it shifted slightly, alert to every sound outside. He felt a strange sense of comfort. Here was a being that humans had feared for centuries, yet it protected him as much as he felt a need to protect it. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the day and the bond forming between them. Sleep came slowly, punctuated by the occasional distant roar, but he knew that together they were stronger than anything the planet could throw at them. The following day, Ethan tried to communicate more deliberately. He drew pictures in the dirt, pointing to objects and making simple sounds while Goran watched and mimicked gestures. Slowly the alien seemed to respond, tilting its head, moving a claw, or emitting low sounds. Ethan felt a thrill each time he felt understood, and he realized that patience was the key. This was not a relationship of words but of observation, gestures, and trust. They practiced simple routines, moving rocks, identifying plants, navigating terrain, and Goran seemed to learn quickly. Ethan began noting patterns, making mental calculations about how the alien reacted in different situations. He marveled at the intelligence and adaptability of the warrior. Midday brought another threat. Ethan spotted strange movement near the cliffs, creatures that moved like shadows, fast and precise. He pointed urgently to Goran, and the alien crouched, readying itself. The creatures attacked suddenly, their claws scraping rocks and metal, making the ground shake. Ethan froze for a moment, then grabbed a small tool and hurled it toward one, distracting it just long enough for Goran to strike. The alien moved with terrifying speed and precision, its massive hands crushing the attackers with ease, yet never harming Ethan. The fight was over quickly, and Ethan realized again that the partnership was more than survival. It was trust, coordination, and a shared instinct for life. After the battle, Ethan tended to minor injuries, checking both himself and Goran. The alien seemed unharmed, but it stood quietly nearby, watching him work. Ethan realized that he was beginning to understand the alien's body language, the subtle shifts that indicated emotion and intention. He smiled faintly and patted the alien's arm lightly. Goran lowered its massive head, letting Ethan's hand rest against it. The gesture, simple yet profound, reinforced the connection that had grown stronger with each day. Ethan felt hope, determination, and awe. He had never imagined that he could forge a bond like this, especially with a creature so alien and powerful. As days passed, Ethan and Goran continued to explore the surrounding terrain. They found hidden valleys, strange rock formations, and areas filled with dangerous flora. Every day brought new lessons. Goran taught Ethan instinctively, guiding him away from unstable ground or hidden predators, while Ethan introduced small tools and ideas that the alien seemed to consider carefully. Their bond deepened with shared experiences. Ethan began to understand that Goran's strength was not just physical, but also mental, a sharp awareness of danger and strategy. The warrior's calm patience and quick reflexes fascinated him, and he knew that this relationship could change not just their lives, but potentially the galaxy's perception of humans. One evening, while resting near a cliff overlooking a river, Ethan noticed distant lights moving on the horizon. He realized immediately that these were not natural. Ships, small but fast, approaching the planet. Fear surged through him, but he did not panic. Goran stood beside him, massive and ready, scanning the horizon. Ethan whispered, pointing, and the alien growled low, a warning that the intruders should beware. They had survived many threats already, but now something new was approaching. Ethan felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with fear. He realized that whatever came next, they would face it together, human and alien, friend and warrior, partners against the unknown. That night, under the alien stars, Ethan thought about everything that had happened. He had found friendship where none was expected, courage where fear had once dominated, and a connection that defied the galaxy's expectations. He knew challenges lay ahead, but for the first time he did not feel alone. Goran was beside him, alert, protective, and aware. Together they had begun something extraordinary, a bond that would be tested but never broken. Ethan whispered into the night, "We will face it together." And Goran responded with a low, vibrating hum, a sound that felt almost like agreement. The adventure was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. Trust, courage, and friendship would guide them through the dangers that waited in the shadows of this alien world. The sun rose over the alien horizon, painting the jagged cliffs in shades of orange and red. Ethan Miller rubbed the sleep from his eyes, stretching and listening to the distant sounds of the planet. Every gust of wind, every rustle in the rocks made him alert. Beside him, Goran shifted slightly, muscles tensing as if sensing what Ethan could not yet hear. The warrior's massive head turned slowly, glowing eyes scanning the surrounding valleys. Ethan had grown accustomed to these moments, understanding that the alien's instincts were sharper than any human technology. He felt a thrill of awe mixed with unease, knowing that danger could strike at any moment on this unpredictable world. Ethan packed his supplies carefully, checking each tool and ration before stepping out of the cave. Goran moved ahead, walking with measured steps, leaving large prints in the red soil that reminded Ethan just how powerful the alien was. As they descended into a narrow valley, Ethan noticed signs of movement. Rocks displaced, vegetation crushed in unnatural patterns. He slowed, pointing to the traces. Goran stopped and crouched low, growling softly. Ethan realized the alien had detected something he could not. He nodded silently, trusting Goran's instincts completely. They moved cautiously, each step deliberate, aware that any wrong move could trigger a deadly encounter. Suddenly, the valley erupted with noise, mechanical hums, metal scraping against stone, and alien voices shouted in a language Ethan did not understand. A group of mercenary alien scouts had arrived, clearly tracking Goran. Ethan's heart pounded as he ducked behind a rock, peering out to see the creatures moving with precision. They were armed with advanced weapons, their armor reflecting the harsh sunlight. Ethan felt a surge of fear, knowing they outnumbered him, and yet relying on Goran gave him courage. He whispered quickly, signaling the alien to take a defensive position. Goran's muscles rippled, and the warrior crouched low, preparing for the attack. Eyes never leaving Ethan, the scouts attacked suddenly, hurling energy weapons and charging with claws and metallic limbs. Ethan ducked instinctively, hurling small tools and rocks to distract the attackers. Goran moved with terrifying speed, crushing some of the intruders and swiping others aside with precision. The valley echoed with roars, blasts, and shouts. Ethan realized the alien was not just strong, but also smart, calculating every move to protect both itself and him. He began to notice patterns in Goran's fighting style and tried to coordinate, using small traps, leading attackers into ambushes, and helping in ways his tools allowed. Each successful maneuver filled him with adrenaline, yet he remained aware that a single mistake could be fatal. After a tense battle that lasted what felt like hours, the remaining mercenaries retreated. Ethan crouched beside Goran, breathing heavily, his clothes torn and dirty, his hands scraped from rocks. The alien's chest heaved and it looked down at him, emitting a low, vibrating hum. Ethan understood it as acknowledgement, a sign of respect and relief. They had survived together, and the bond between them had strengthened through shared danger. Ethan examined his surroundings carefully, ensuring no scouts remained hidden. Every instinct told him the attacks would not stop, that this was only the beginning of a larger threat. He realized that their partnership had become essential not just for survival, but for facing challenges the galaxy had not imagined. As they moved away from the valley, Ethan and Goran navigated through dense alien foliage. The plants were thick, some with thorns sharp enough to pierce his clothing. Ethan carefully followed Goran, learning to anticipate the warrior's movements and understanding the subtle cues that indicated danger. Birds with metallic feathers and screeching calls flew overhead, adding to the strange and tense atmosphere. Ethan felt alive, his senses heightened, aware of every sound and movement. The alien warrior's presence was both reassuring and awe-inspiring. Each step taught him the importance of observation, patience, and trust. Goran occasionally glanced back, as if checking that Ethan was following safely, and Ethan could not help but feel gratitude for the alien's vigilance. By midday, they reached a cliffside overlooking a river that glowed faintly in the alien sun. Ethan knelt, scanning the terrain with his equipment while Goran stood nearby, massive and silent. Ethan noticed unusual footprints along the riverbank, suggesting that more intruders were nearby. His heart raced, but he remained calm, signaling Goran to stay alert. Suddenly the air shimmered and Ethan's scanner picked up movement. He froze as a larger force of alien mercenaries emerged from the shadows, their weapons raised, eyes scanning the area. Ethan whispered to Goran, who immediately crouched low, muscles coiling like springs ready to strike. They were outnumbered, but the alien's presence gave Ethan courage. Together they would face whatever came next, relying on trust, skill, and strategy. The battle began with a sudden rush of energy blasts and metallic strikes. Ethan moved with precision, leading some of the attackers into narrow passes where Goran could handle them more effectively. The alien warrior fought with a mix of brute strength and intelligence, crushing enemies, swiping away weapons, and protecting Ethan at every turn. Ethan realized he had learned quickly from the first encounter, predicting enemy movements and coordinating with Goran instinctively. They became a single unit, human and alien, fighting not out of hatred but out of necessity and mutual trust. The valley echoed with the sounds of conflict, the clash of metal and the roars of creatures large and small. Hours passed, and the remaining mercenaries either retreated or were neutralized. Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted but exhilarated. Goran stood nearby, massive body glistening, chest heaving but otherwise unharmed. Ethan reached out, touching the alien's arm lightly, and Goran lowered his head, allowing the gesture. The moment was quiet, almost serene after the chaos. Ethan felt a surge of relief and pride. They had survived not just by luck, but through cooperation, intelligence, and courage. Their bond had grown stronger, forged in the heat of battle, and Ethan realized that together they could face anything the galaxy sent their way. In the following days, Ethan focused on learning more about Goran. He observed the alien's habits, reactions, and patterns. Goran began responding to simple gestures, sounds, and symbols Ethan created, demonstrating understanding and curiosity. They practiced moving silently through the terrain, navigating obstacles and avoiding predators. Ethan realized that he was beginning to communicate with the alien in a way no other human had achieved. He felt a mixture of excitement and awe, understanding that this partnership could be revolutionary. The galaxy might not see it yet, but he knew they had discovered something extraordinary. One night, under the strange glow of alien moons, Ethan lay beside Goran near a stream. The alien's massive form was protective, and Ethan could feel the vibrations of its breathing. He whispered softly, sharing thoughts and hopes, and Goran responded with low hums and subtle gestures. Ethan felt a deep connection, a bond beyond words or species. He realized that this friendship was not just about survival. It was about trust, understanding, and the possibility of something greater. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen eyes watched, and Ethan knew that future challenges would test them, but he was no longer afraid. With Goran, he could face the galaxy, its dangers, and the unknown. The days that followed brought exploration and discovery. Ethan and Goran uncovered hidden valleys, unusual plant life, and creatures that moved like shadows. Each discovery was a lesson in adaptation and trust. Goran guided Ethan safely through the dangers, while Ethan offered insights and tools that the alien considered carefully. Their communication grew more intuitive, a rhythm of gestures, sounds, and mutual understanding. Ethan marveled at the intelligence and empathy of Goran, realizing that the galaxy had underestimated not just humans, but the potential for connection between species. Every day reinforced the notion that courage, patience, and trust could overcome even the greatest odds. By the end of Part 3, Ethan understood the depth of their bond. He had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, yet he had grown stronger because of it. Goran had shown loyalty, intelligence, and a willingness to protect a being completely unlike itself. Together, they had survived attacks, navigated treacherous terrain, and built a connection that defied the expectations of both humans and aliens. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Greater threats awaited, but with Goran by his side, he felt ready for anything. Their story was becoming legendary in its own small way, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The early morning fog hung low over the alien plains as Ethan and Goran moved cautiously through a narrow canyon. The red soil was damp from the previous night's storms, and every step they took left deep impressions. Ethan's senses were sharp, every sound amplified, the crunch of rocks beneath his boots, the distant cries of alien creatures, and the whisper of wind against stone. Goran's massive frame led the way, muscles coiled, eyes glowing faintly as they scanned for any sign of movement. Ethan had grown to trust the alien completely, following each gesture and instinct as if they shared one mind. They had traveled far from the cave near the river, venturing into unknown territories. The planet was more dangerous than Ethan had imagined. Twisted vegetation tore at his clothes, and some of the smaller predators had started noticing their presence. Ethan carried a few tools, but he relied heavily on Goran's instincts. Each time the alien paused and growled, Ethan understood immediately to stay still. It was a rhythm, a partnership forged in trust and experience. They had learned to move as one, and every day that passed strengthened the connection between them. By midday, they reached a wide open field that stretched toward jagged mountains in the distance. Ethan squinted, scanning the horizon with his equipment. He noticed movement, shadows shifting in the distance, too coordinated to be random wildlife. He pointed subtly to Goran, who immediately crouched low, eyes narrowing. The alien's massive body tensed, every muscle ready for action. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. Whatever was approaching was not natural, and he knew that he would not survive without Goran. The alien warrior had become more than a companion. It was his protector, his guide, and perhaps the only friend he had in a world that seemed intent on killing him. The threat revealed itself as a squad of alien mercenaries, more organized than the previous encounters. They moved with discipline, weapons raised, scanning the field for any sign of the pair. Ethan ducked behind a large boulder while Goran stepped forward, massive claws scraping the soil as he prepared to defend. The tension was unbearable, the silence broken only by the faint hum of approaching energy weapons. Ethan knew they were outnumbered, yet fear did not dominate him. Trust in Goran gave him courage. He adjusted his position, ready to act, while Goran growled low, a sound that vibrated through the valley and warned the mercenaries to hesitate. The battle began suddenly. Blasts of energy cut through the air, hitting rocks and sending debris flying. Ethan moved with precision, throwing small tools to distract the attackers while Goran struck with terrifying force. The alien warrior crushed mercenaries, swiped weapons aside, and protected Ethan at every turn. The valley echoed with roars, explosions, and the clash of metal against rock. Ethan realized they had developed a rhythm, anticipating each other's moves and responding without words. It was a dance of survival, and for the first time Ethan felt confident that they could handle any threat the planet threw at them. Hours passed in tense combat. Ethan's body was exhausted, his hands scraped, his clothes torn, but he continued to fight alongside Goran. The alien's strength was unmatched, yet it displayed intelligence, strategy, and a kind of mercy, disabling attackers without unnecessary harm. Ethan marveled at the creature's capacity for thought under pressure. Every move was calculated, precise, and terrifyingly effective. They fought as a single unit, human and alien instinct and intuition blending into a seamless defense. By the time the last mercenary fled or was neutralized, Ethan sank to the ground, breathing heavily, covered in dirt and sweat. Goran stood beside him, massive chest heaving, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. After the battle, Ethan tended to minor wounds, checking both himself and Goran. The alien seemed unharmed, though it stayed alert, scanning the area for any further threats. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and admiration. They had survived another attack together, and each encounter strengthened their bond. The human had learned the alien's habits, reactions, and signs, while the alien had come to recognize Ethan as a partner rather than a threat. Their connection was becoming intuitive, a silent communication built on trust, observation, and shared experiences. Over the next few days, Ethan and Goran explored deeper into the planet's interior. They discovered hidden valleys filled with dangerous flora, alien creatures with strange abilities, and terrain that challenged every step. Ethan observed Goran carefully, noting the alien's strategies and instincts. He began to anticipate the warrior's movements, learning to communicate with subtle gestures and sounds. Goran responded with equal curiosity, studying Ethan's tools, movements, and reactions. Each day brought new lessons, and Ethan felt a growing sense of partnership, respect, and admiration for the alien warrior. One evening, while resting near a rocky ridge, Ethan noticed movement in the distance, large shapes approaching, moving deliberately and slowly. His heart raced. He realized that this force was different, larger and better equipped than the previous mercenaries. He whispered urgently to Goran, who immediately lowered his body, scanning the terrain and preparing for confrontation. Ethan's hands shook slightly as he adjusted his scanner and grabbed a few tools. The approaching force was advancing steadily, and there was no cover nearby. He knew that they would have to confront this threat directly, and he trusted Goran to lead the way. The larger force arrived with a roar, alien ships hovering above, and soldiers moving in coordinated patterns across the rocky ground. Ethan crouched behind a boulder, adrenaline pumping, watching Goran step forward, massive claws ready, energy pulsing faintly from his armor-like scales. The battle began with sudden bursts of energy and metallic strikes. Ethan acted quickly, throwing tools and using the terrain to distract attackers while Goran moved with precision, crushing enemies, disarming mercenaries, and protecting Ethan at every turn. The noise, chaos, and destruction were overwhelming, yet Ethan felt a strange clarity. He and Goran were no longer merely surviving. They were dominating, working as a unit that no ordinary mercenary force could overcome. Hours of combat passed, and the alien force began to retreat. Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted, and watched Goran survey the field, massive body tense and alert. They had survived, yet Ethan knew that this was only a temporary victory. Stronger enemies would come, drawn by rumors of the giant warrior and the human companion. He glanced at Goran, feeling gratitude and respect. The alien had not only protected him, but had taught him to survive, to think, and to trust instincts that went beyond words. Their bond had been forged in danger, tempered by shared struggles and strengthened by mutual respect. In the days that followed, Ethan focused on strengthening communication with Goran. He used gestures, sounds, and drawings in the soil to convey ideas, while Goran responded with subtle movements, low hums, and actions that demonstrated understanding. They practiced navigating dangerous terrain, setting traps, and observing wildlife to anticipate threats. Ethan marveled at the alien's intelligence, empathy, and adaptability. Goran seemed to understand more than Ethan had imagined, responding to abstract concepts and demonstrating problem-solving skills that rivaled human ingenuity. Each success reinforced the bond, and Ethan felt a growing sense of purpose and excitement. One night, while resting near a cliff with the alien stars shining overhead, Ethan thought about everything that had happened. They had survived attacks, navigated treacherous terrain, and learned to communicate across species. The bond between human and alien warrior was deepening, and Ethan realized that they were building something extraordinary. He whispered softly, sharing thoughts, ideas, and hopes, and Goran responded with low vibrations and subtle gestures. The trust, courage, and friendship they had cultivated felt unbreakable. Ethan knew that whatever challenges awaited, they would face them together. The following weeks brought exploration and discovery. Ethan and Goran uncovered hidden valleys, strange rock formations, and creatures that moved like shadows across the alien landscape. Each discovery was a lesson in survival, adaptation, and trust. Goran guided Ethan with instinct and intelligence, while Ethan offered ideas, tools, and strategies that the alien considered carefully. Their communication became intuitive, a rhythm of gestures, sounds, and shared understanding. Ethan marveled at the alien's thought process, realizing that the galaxy had underestimated not only humans, but also the potential for partnership between species. Every day reinforced the lesson that courage, patience, and trust could overcome even the most formidable threats. By the end of Part 4, Ethan understood the depth of their connection. They had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, yet had grown stronger because of it. Goran had shown loyalty, intelligence, and a willingness to protect a being completely unlike itself. Together they had survived multiple attacks, navigated difficult terrain, and built a bond that defied expectations. Ethan knew that greater challenges awaited, but with Goran by his side, he felt ready for anything. Their story was becoming legendary, a human and a giant alien warrior standing together in a world that sought to destroy them, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The morning sky was a pale gold, brushing the jagged cliffs of the alien planet with soft light. Ethan Miller rose from his makeshift bedding, rubbing sleep from his eyes as the crisp air filled his lungs. Beside him, Goran stirred, muscles flexing under his thick skin as he stretched, eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan marveled at how the alien's instincts were sharper than any human senses, how it could detect danger long before it became visible. The partnership they had formed was unlike anything he had ever experienced, a mixture of trust, respect, and an unspoken understanding that had been forged in battles, danger, and survival. Today, Ethan felt a strange mix of anticipation and unease. They had been exploring the planet for weeks, encountering hostile creatures and mercenaries, yet surviving every encounter. Each challenge had strengthened their bond, teaching Ethan to anticipate Goran's movements and read the subtle signals that the alien warrior offered. He packed his supplies methodically, checking tools and rations, and moved alongside Goran, feeling the rhythm of the terrain beneath his feet. Every sound, every movement was amplified, and he felt more alive than ever before. As they moved into a narrow canyon, Ethan noticed unusual patterns in the rocks. Strange markings, seemingly etched by large claws or tools, ran along the cliff faces. He pointed to them, and Goran paused, head tilting as he examined the markings. Ethan sensed a message in the shapes, a warning perhaps, though he could not read it. He gestured cautiously, and Goran responded with a low growl, signaling that they should proceed with care. Every step they took was deliberate, every movement calculated as they navigated the dangerous terrain. The canyon was quiet, yet the silence felt heavy, filled with unseen threats and the weight of anticipation. Suddenly, a shadow passed above them, and Ethan froze. He glanced upward to see a squad of alien scouts descending from the cliffs. They were faster and more coordinated than the mercenaries they had faced before. Ethan whispered urgently, pointing to Goran, who immediately crouched low, muscles coiled, eyes glowing faintly. The alien's body language spoke volumes: prepare, defend, survive. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline but did not panic. He had learned to trust Goran's instincts completely, and together they moved like a single entity, anticipating each other's actions. The battle erupted with sudden intensity. Energy blasts cut through the canyon, striking rocks and sending debris flying. Ethan moved quickly, using small tools and rocks to distract the scouts while Goran struck with immense strength. The alien warrior crushed enemies with powerful swipes, disarmed attackers, and protected Ethan at every turn. The noise was deafening, the chaos overwhelming, yet Ethan felt a clarity he had never known. He and Goran were no longer merely surviving. They were a team, executing precise maneuvers that left their enemies struggling to respond. Every move was calculated, every action a lesson in coordination and trust. Hours passed in tense combat. Ethan's body ached, his hands scraped and bruised, yet he remained focused. Goran's strength was astonishing, but it was the alien's intelligence and strategy that amazed him. The warrior anticipated every attack, adapted to every move, and protected Ethan without hesitation. Together they became a force unlike any other, a human and an alien moving as one. By the time the remaining scouts retreated, Ethan sank to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. Goran stood beside him, chest heaving, eyes scanning the surroundings. They had survived, yet Ethan knew this was only a prelude to greater challenges. The following days were filled with careful exploration. Ethan and Goran moved through alien forests, over jagged cliffs, and across rivers that glowed faintly under the twin suns. Ethan observed Goran closely, learning patterns in the warrior's movements and reactions. They developed a silent communication, a rhythm of gestures, sounds, and shared intuition. Goran responded to Ethan's directions with subtle movements, and Ethan began to anticipate the alien's instincts, predicting actions and coordinating responses. Their bond deepened with each passing day, a partnership built on trust, observation, and mutual respect. One evening, as the alien moons rose in the sky, Ethan noticed distant lights moving through the terrain. His heart raced. The lights were not natural. They were approaching quickly, larger forces this time. He signaled Goran, who immediately tensed, muscles coiled like springs. The alien's eyes glowed faintly, scanning the horizon, and Ethan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. They had faced danger before, but this force seemed different, more organized and well-equipped. He adjusted his tools, prepared traps, and followed Goran's lead, ready to face whatever was coming. The approach was slow, deliberate, and Ethan realized they were being watched. Alien scouts spread across the ridges, scanning the terrain, their weapons ready. Ethan crouched behind a rock, heart pounding as Goran stepped forward, massive claws scraping the soil. The battle began with sudden bursts of energy, metallic strikes, and deafening roars. Ethan moved with precision, using the terrain and tools to create distractions while Goran struck with devastating power. The coordination between human and alien warrior was flawless, a silent conversation of instinct, skill, and trust. Hours of combat followed. Ethan's hands were bloodied and bruised, his clothes torn, yet he continued to move and act with focus and determination. Goran's strength and strategy were awe-inspiring, every movement precise, every strike calculated. Together they neutralized enemy after enemy, forcing the larger force to retreat. When the dust settled, Ethan sank to the ground, exhausted but filled with a sense of accomplishment. Goran stood nearby, vigilant and alert, eyes scanning for remaining threats. They had survived another encounter, and each challenge had strengthened their bond, making them more capable and more dangerous together. In the following days, Ethan and Goran focused on preparation. They explored caves for shelter, studied the terrain for traps, and learned patterns in the behavior of local wildlife. Ethan developed small devices and signals to communicate more effectively with Goran, while the alien responded with subtle gestures and low vibrations. Their communication became instinctive, intuitive, and more effective than any spoken language. Ethan marveled at the aliens' intelligence, empathy, and adaptability. Goran seemed to understand more than he had ever imagined, responding to abstract ideas and demonstrating problem-solving skills that rivaled human ingenuity. One night, as they rested near a cliff overlooking a glowing river, Ethan reflected on everything they had faced. They had survived attacks, navigated treacherous terrain, and learned to communicate across species. The bond between human and alien warrior had grown deep and unbreakable. Ethan whispered softly, sharing thoughts and hopes, and Goran responded with low vibrations and subtle movements. The trust, courage, and friendship they had built felt unshakable. Ethan knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The galaxy had no idea that a human and a giant alien warrior were forming a partnership that could change everything. In the days that followed, Ethan and Goran continued to explore the alien landscape. They discovered hidden valleys, unusual rock formations, and creatures that moved with eerie precision. Each discovery was a lesson in survival, adaptation, and trust. Goran guided Ethan with instinct and intelligence, while Ethan provided ideas, tools, and strategies that the alien considered carefully. Their communication became instinctive, a rhythm of gestures, sounds, and shared understanding. Ethan marveled at Goran's thought process, realizing that the galaxy had underestimated not only humans, but also the potential for partnership between species. Every day reinforced the lesson that courage, patience, and trust could overcome even the most formidable threats. By the end of Part 5, Ethan understood the depth of their connection. They had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, yet had grown stronger because of it. Goran had shown loyalty, intelligence, and a willingness to protect a being completely unlike itself. Together they had survived multiple attacks, navigated difficult terrain, and built a bond that defied expectations. Ethan knew that greater challenges awaited, but with Goran by his side he felt ready for anything. Their story was becoming legendary, a human and a giant alien warrior standing together in a hostile world, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The alien sun rose slowly, casting long shadows across the jagged cliffs and red plains. Ethan Miller stood on a high ridge, scanning the horizon with his tools while Goran rested nearby, massive body coiled and alert. The previous weeks had been a relentless trial, each day filled with danger, exploration, and the constant need for vigilance. They had survived mercenaries, hostile creatures, and treacherous terrain, and now the stakes felt higher than ever. Ethan could sense that something significant was approaching, a force that would test not only their strength but the bond they had built. Ethan packed his equipment carefully, ensuring that everything was in place. He moved with purpose, knowing that Goran's instincts were far sharper than his own. The alien warrior rose, muscles rippling, and glanced at Ethan with eyes that seemed to convey understanding, trust, and encouragement. Together, they descended the ridge, moving through narrow passes and dense alien foliage. Every rustle of leaves, every displaced stone made Ethan alert. He had learned to trust Goran implicitly, following the subtle signals that indicated danger or safety. Each step forward reinforced the bond that had grown stronger through shared challenges. As they approached a wide valley, Ethan noticed movement in the distance. Alien ships hovered above, and troops were moving systematically across the terrain. He felt a surge of apprehension, realizing that this was no ordinary attack. The forces were larger, more organized, and clearly aware of their presence. Ethan whispered to Goran, who immediately crouched low, muscles coiling, eyes scanning every angle. The alien's posture was tense, ready for battle, yet calculated. Ethan felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He knew they were outnumbered, but he also knew that together they could face almost any threat. The first engagement began suddenly. Energy blasts cut through the valley, striking rocks and sending debris flying. Ethan moved quickly, positioning himself to create distractions, while Goran struck with devastating force. The alien warrior crushed enemy troops, swiped weapons aside, and protected Ethan at every turn. The coordination between human and alien was precise, seamless, and terrifyingly effective. Ethan marveled at the intelligence behind Goran's movements. The warrior anticipated attacks, adapted to the battlefield, and shielded him in ways that no human ally could have. Every action reinforced the trust and synergy they had developed. Hours passed in fierce combat. Ethan's body was sore, his clothes torn, and his hands scraped and bruised, yet he pressed on. Goran's strength was awe-inspiring, but it was the alien's intelligence, strategy, and protective instincts that amazed him most. They moved as one, human and alien instinct and intuition blending into an unstoppable force. The enemy, though numerous and well-armed, could not gain the upper hand. By the time the remaining attackers retreated, Ethan sank to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. Goran stood nearby, chest heaving, eyes scanning for any hidden threats. They had survived, yet Ethan understood that the galaxy would continue to challenge them, and stronger foes were likely on the horizon. In the days that followed, Ethan focused on preparation and strategy. He and Goran explored hidden caves, mapped dangerous terrain, and studied patterns of hostile creatures. They tested traps, practiced coordination, and refined their communication methods. Ethan developed subtle signals and gestures, and Goran responded with increasing understanding. Their communication had become instinctive, intuitive, and faster than any spoken words. Ethan was amazed at the depth of Goran's intelligence. The alien could anticipate actions, solve problems creatively, and even demonstrate what seemed like empathy. Every day reinforced the idea that their partnership was not just about survival, it was revolutionary. One evening, while resting near a cliff overlooking a glowing river, Ethan reflected on their journey. They had faced countless threats, survived impossible situations, and built a bond that transcended species. Goran lay beside him, massive form protective eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan whispered softly, sharing thoughts, hopes, and fears, and Goran responded with low vibrations, subtle gestures, and movements that conveyed understanding. Ethan realized that this friendship was deeper than he had ever imagined. It was a partnership forged in adversity, tempered by shared struggles and strengthened by mutual respect. They had become more than allies. They were a single force capable of facing the unknown together. The following week brought exploration of uncharted territory. Ethan and Goran discovered alien ruins, strange vegetation, and predators that moved with uncanny intelligence. Each discovery was a test of skill, patience, and trust. Goran guided Ethan through dangers while Ethan provided tools, ideas, and strategies that the alien considered carefully. Their coordination had become flawless. Each challenge reinforced the bond, teaching Ethan lessons in observation, courage, and intuition. The alien warrior's abilities were extraordinary, yet Ethan realized that it was the combination of human ingenuity and Goran's strength that made them unstoppable. One day, as they crossed a rocky plateau, Ethan noticed a massive force approaching in the distance. Alien warships glinted in the sunlight, and troops moved in formation across the plains. Ethan's heart raced. He knew that this confrontation would be unlike any before. He signaled Goran, who immediately crouched low, muscles coiled, eyes glowing with anticipation. The alien warrior's presence was both intimidating and reassuring. Ethan felt a surge of determination. They had come too far, survived too much, and built a bond too strong to be broken. Whatever awaited them, they would face it together. The battle began with sudden ferocity. Energy blasts, metallic strikes, and deafening roars filled the valley. Ethan moved strategically, creating distractions and using the terrain to their advantage. Goran struck with overwhelming force, crushing enemies, disarming troops, and shielding Ethan. The coordination between human and alien was flawless, instinctive, and deadly. Hours passed in intense combat. Ethan's body ached, his hands were bloodied, but he pressed on, motivated by the presence of Goran and the stakes of the battle. Together they overcame waves of enemies, forcing the alien forces to retreat. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Ethan looked at Goran and felt a profound sense of pride and gratitude. They had faced countless dangers, survived impossible odds, and built a connection that defied logic and expectation. Goran, massive and powerful, lay beside him, chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Ethan realized that this was more than friendship. It was a bond that transcended species, a partnership that could change the course of the galaxy. In the following days, Ethan and Goran focused on recovery, observation, and preparation. They explored alien landscapes, discovered new forms of wildlife, and refined their methods of communication and strategy. Ethan marveled at Goran's intelligence, problem-solving skills, and protective instincts. They had learned to anticipate each other, respond without words, and act as a single unit. Every day strengthened their bond and prepared them for even greater challenges. One night under the twin moons, Ethan and Goran rested near a glowing cliffside. Ethan whispered, reflecting on their journey, the battles, the dangers, and the trust they had built. Goran responded with gentle vibrations and subtle gestures, acknowledging the words and thoughts of his human companion. Ethan felt a deep sense of connection, a realization that together they could face anything. The galaxy might not understand, but he knew that their partnership was powerful, unique, and unstoppable. The final challenge arrived unexpectedly. Alien warships appeared in the sky, larger and more advanced than any force they had faced before. Troops moved across the plains with precision, weapons charged, ready to engage. Ethan felt a surge of fear and determination. He looked at Goran, who crouched low, muscles coiled, eyes glowing with readiness. Together they stepped forward into the valley, prepared to confront the greatest threat yet. The battle was intense, chaotic, and relentless. Ethan moved with precision, creating diversions and using his tools to disrupt the enemy. Goran struck with power, intelligence, and strategy, neutralizing threats while protecting Ethan. Their coordination was seamless, a combination of instinct, skill, and mutual trust. Hours passed, and the alien forces began to falter. Ethan and Goran moved with unstoppable momentum, forcing retreats and eliminating threats with calculated efficiency. By the end of the confrontation, the battlefield was silent, the alien forces defeated or in retreat. Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted yet exhilarated. Goran stood nearby, chest heaving, eyes scanning for any remaining danger. They had survived the ultimate challenge together. As the dust settled and the alien sun set, Ethan reflected on everything they had achieved. They had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, yet had grown stronger because of it. Goran had shown loyalty, intelligence, and protective instincts beyond imagination. Together, they had survived impossible odds, built a bond that transcended species, and forged a partnership that could change the galaxy. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. With Goran by his side, he felt ready for any challenge, confident that they could face the unknown and emerge victorious. Their story was no longer just survival. It was legend,